Hello, everybody. I think you can now see us and hear us. Welcome to this webinar on the Javahir-i-Asrar with Shahrokh Monjazeb, who's one of the faculty for the course. Shahrokh lives up in British Columbia and is a prolific writer on the topic of Baha'u'llah especially. He loves Baha'u'llah, I guess you could say, not only personally, but in terms of a scholarly topic as well. He's written an entire book on Baha'u'llah, not a hugely thick one like some of the other ones we have, but a really marvelous account of Baha'u'llah's life, and has been translating things, even helping the World Center out with translations, but also some of these provisionals that we've been able to use have been produced by Shahrokh. And he's really quite an expert. I guess I could say that. I suppose in his humility he would demur, but he's quite an expert on Javahir-i-Asrar. And today he will be giving us a PowerPoint of, I suppose, 40, 50 minutes, maybe an hour at the most, and then we'll take questions afterwards. So I will probably turn off my camera and just leave my audio. I'll turn off my audio too so we don't have any background noise. And I will turn things over to Shahrokh. Thank you very much, Shahrokh, and it's all yours now.
Thank you, Rob.
No.
Well, friends, it's so good to be here today, and I wish I could see all your radiant faces. You'll just have to content yourself with looking at my unattractive face. But it's a joy to be here. I'm very excited to share some thoughts and some new insights with you about Javahir-i-Asrar. I think this is a wonderful course, and I'm grateful that we've had the opportunity with the Wilmette Institute to be together. I've always said that when one studies a tablet, any of the works of the central figures, particularly that of Baha'u'llah, it is so important to have a historical contextualization, because essentially tablets, the way I define tablets, they have two dimensions, or the writings of Baha'u'llah, if you will. They have two dimensions. They have an eternal dimension, which is timeless, and it resonates with us at any given time. Whether you read it 20 years from now, or you have read it 10 years ago, it speaks to us in a certain way, and that's hence the word resonating. It resonates with us in a certain way because its message is timeless, and that's the magical quality of the creative Word of God. However, there's another opportunity for us and another dimension which is very important, is the historical dimension. Because many of these works were revealed in honor of individuals after they were either had asked the question or they were being graciously favored with the revelation. And it's always good to look at the historical dimension to see, for example, who was this individual, and we get a sense of the way the author, namely in this case Baha'u'llah, is addressing this individual, and how is he addressing, whether was this individual a friend, a foe, an aloof person. You know, these are all very important characteristics that will help us understand the divine underlying thought, if you will. So I wanted to share with you some aspects that you may have not looked at by studying the Javahir-i-Asrar at this point, because you know this is a fairly relatively new translation. It's been in the last 10 years or so. It's a long time coming. I mean, it is a very important work, and I'll talk about that. So I'll use the PowerPoint, and then I will go on. The PowerPoint only has about 9 slides or so, and I'll be happy to post the PDF version of this later on. It is in Apple Keynote, so some of you, depending on whether you've got a PC or an Apple machine, you may or may not be able to actually read it. And there's also certain fonts on this that for transliteration that not everyone may have. So if I save it as in a PDF form, you may be able to access it better and have all the information. So that's just to sort of set the stage for us, the PowerPoint. It's really not meant to be very exhaustive here. And then I have some notes here that I will look at, and hopefully at the end there will be some opportunities for some questions. So let's look at Javahir-i-Asrar. But before we begin, I felt that it was very important for us to look at Baha'u'llah's revelation in the Baghdad period. And this has not been done in any of our authoritative or published works like the Guardian's writings, nor Mr. Balyuzi or even Mr. Tahirzadeh. So this is something novel that I'm sharing with you. So the years of Baha'u'llah's revelation in Baghdad can be divided into 5 periods. Okay, what are these 5 periods? Let's look at them. The first period can be viewed as the early Baghdad period, and this is what I'm naming as the early Baghdad, which is from Baha'u'llah's arrival on April 1853 to the date that he left for his retirement. You know, there was the first year he was in Baghdad, and then he left for the mountains of Sulaymaniyah. So that 1 year, there were some tablets revealed, and I'll get into that as well, because each of these periods have a certain theme, and also the style and the tone of revelation is very different. So for us to be able to understand, you know, the tablets that we're studying and which period was it, we'll get a lot better understanding of the context of the tablet and the tone of the tablet as well. And it's so important, really, when we go back 150 years, we want to put ourselves in the context, in the historical context. What was happening at the time? What were some of the events of the day? Because all of those had an impact on the revelation. You know, and if we know the historical context, we'll be able to understand and get the message better, I believe. So the second period that you can view as the Baghdad would be the Sulaymaniyah period, which Baha'u'llah did reveal writings, and that was the 2 years from April 1854 to March of 1856. The third period is the middle Baghdad period. This is where we're going to, where Javahir-i-Asrar falls under this period, the middle Baghdad period, and is the most prolific and perhaps the richest of the periods in the Baghdad period. So I have separated that as Baha'u'llah's arrival, 1856, back to Baghdad until the revelation of the Kitab-i-Iran, which was really a demarcation point in the revelation, and it was something that was prophesied by the Bab as well. So, and we know now the date of the revelation being January 1861. The fourth period is the late Baghdad period, from after the revelation of the Kitab-i-Iran to a day before Baha'u'llah's arrival at the Garden of Najibiyeh. We can't really categorize that period with the Najibiyeh period, because Najibiyeh, when Baha'u'llah arrived there, he privately yet openly declared his mission, according to Abdul Baha. So obviously the tone of the tablet changes from there, and so therefore the fifth period would be the Najibiyeh period, the 12 days from April 22nd to May 3rd, 1863. Now, historically, these periods have been referred to both in the writings as well as by Baha'i scholars as a period entitled to be something. And the periods 1 to 4 is known as Ayyam Butun. And the word Ayyam Butun means days of concealment. This is where Baha'u'llah was holding back his identity. He was not allowed by God to disclose his identity, and this is a period of concealment. And in Javahir-i-Asrar, in the second paragraph, I believe, he refers to this, and we'll get back to that as well. Period 5 is known as Izhar Amr Alani. These are all in Persian with some Arabic mixed in. Izhar Amr Alani means open declaration. So the fifth period is the one that is referred to in the Baha'i history as his open declaration. So the Javahir-i-Asrar has to be studied in the context with the understanding and the notion that it was revealed during Ayyam al-Butun, the days of concealment. Now, let's just briefly look at these periods. Early Baghdad, here is more specific, 8th of April 1853 to 9th of April 1854 for 1 year. The tone of revelation was muted, it was somber, it was concealed, it was sorrowful, admonitory, it was ominous, foreshadowing of severe tests and trials to come. It's a very special period here, and the writings of Baha'u'llah I've discovered have a very similar style to that of the Bab. It almost feels like it's a continuation of the Bab. Bab's writing. There is a very famous commentary, which is the most noteworthy tablet revealed during this period, which Mr. Tahirzadeh has talked about in the revelation of Baha'u'llah Kullu Ta'am, the tablets of all food, which was a commentary in a passage from the Quran, which was revealed in honor of Sayyid Kamaluddin al-Naraqi as well. But again, we won't get into this. This is not specific to our discussion. The second period is the Sulaymaniyah period, from 10th of April, where Baha'u'llah departed Baghdad without telling anyone, until he comes back 2 years ago, and you know the historical accounts of how Baha'u'llah was discovered, and then how he was pleaded to come back, despite the fact that he had said he didn't want to come back. The tone of revelation during the Sulaymaniyah period is very mystical. It's romantic in a literary sense. It's concealed. It's very poetical. Almost every work that Baha'u'llah has revealed during this period that we have has some poetical intonations to it. It's very fervid and very soul-stirring and soul-provoking. It also invites the reader or the audience mystically to him, yet there is concealment there. So the interplay is quite rich and quite fascinating. Some of the tablets that you know of during this period, the most noteworthy, the two Qasideh Warqaiyeh, which is in Arabic, that was revealed during his Sulaymaniyah period, and also Saghiyas Qeyb Baqa. I mean, this is a gorgeous tablet. The first few verses of it is Saghiyas Qeyb Baqa burqa barafkan az izar ta benusham khamr baqi az jamal kirdegar آنچه در خمخانه داری نشکند صفرای عشق زان شراب معنوی ساقی همی بحری بیار. There is a provisional translation of Saghiyas Qeyb Baqa by my dear friend Dr. Frank Lewis, who's a professor at University of Chicago, a great scholar of Persian literature and a great Baha'i. Again, these are very difficult to translate. It's a prose translation, a great attempt. I think it's been published in one of the Baha'i Studies or Baha'i Studies Review. Anyhow, a great tablet. So again, very poetical, and we'll see even Javahir-i-Asrar has poetical dimensions to it, as we will read some of its original first few lines. The third period, the Middle Baghdad period, which brings us to the period that we are, which is under study, it's almost 5 years. It's from 19th of March 1856 to mid-January 1861. The first year or so, we don't have too many tablets from Baha'u'llah, and there's a reason for that. As The Guardian explains, and Baha'i historians have recorded in their first-hand account of such people as Baha'u'llah's amanuensis, Mirza Abajan, who Baha'u'llah during this period, as revelations would come, he would not allow them to be, for the recordings to be kept. He would order sometimes many of them to be destroyed he would order Mirza Agha to throw it in the Tigris River. And so we don't have a lot of works during this period. And for the first few months, Baha'u'llah secluded himself because he was so distraught by the condition of the Babis. As the Guardian says, the fortunes of the faith had fallen to its lowest ebb. I think that's what the terminology he uses. So the first few, I would say first year or two, is a kind of a tenuous period where Baha'u'llah is actually in the field trying to transform, trying to mingle with some of these Babis and reform their characters. And I think the first seminal work that really came out in the early part of the Middle Baghdad period was the Hidden Words, which was revealed according to Abdul Baha in 1858. So again, that's almost 2 years from the period that he arrived there, back to Baghdad. So the tone of revelation, I would say, it's didactic, it's exhortative, it's transformative, and also it's submissive to God's will. There's a special radiant acquiescence that we see in the writings of Baha'u'llah, in particular in some of the later tablets like Shakan Shavand, which hopefully we'll get an opportunity to study together at the next webinar in about a couple of weeks. Is truly an example of Baha'u'llah's radiant acquiescence and submission to God's will, despite all the onslaught and of the implacable enemies of him and the faith of the Bab that were surrounding him. A very dangerous period for Baha'u'llah and the friends as well. So some of the most noteworthy tablets revealed during this period, which I consider to be the richest and the most prolific, are Kalamat Maknuneh, the Persian and Arabic hidden words. Of course, there's the Haft Wadi, the Seven Valleys, and Chahar Wadi, which are two separate works, the Four Valleys. There are other works that we don't have as yet studied very extensively, with the exception of some few paragraphs offered by Mr. Tahir Zadeh, and this is Hurufat Alim, a very, very important work of Baha'u'llah, which is often recited during Baha'i funeral services, because it's reflective on the soul, and it's an incredible tablet. I just can't begin to tell you much about it. Sahifeh Shatiyeh, which despite the fact that it's been referred to as the Book of the River, it's not really a book, it's a rather short tablet, and there is a provisional translation of it by my other good friend, Dr. Nader Saidi, as well. And also an introduction in one of the Baha'i Studies journals back in 1999, I believe. But perhaps the work that up until about 10 years ago was not as much known in the West is the Gems of Divine Mystery, Javahir-i-Asrar. And I would consider Javahir-i-Asrar being the fourth most important work of Baha'u'llah revealed during the Baghdad period. So you have the Kitab-i-Iran, of course, being the main and the most important. Then it's the Kalamat Maknuneh, the hidden words, and these two have been confirmed by Shoghi Effendi. Their rank have been stated in God Passes By. And the third is the Seven Valleys, which Shoghi Effendi again considers Baha'u'llah's most important mystical writings, and I think that's the terminology he uses. And it is very much a work that very much intertwines with the gems and the Kitab-i-Iran. To study the three of them together really is the way to do it. And in future there will be more academic courses that would study these works together, during a 1-year academic year or so. But they do impart information that gets built on, and some scholars have suggested that first it was the revelation of the Haft Wadi, the Seven Valleys was revealed first, which there is a chance that that could be true. We don't know. There are some evidences that Javahir-i-Asrar may have been revealed before the Seven Valleys, but you know, they're around the same year. They're both revealed around 1859, 1860, and then there's of course, the Kitab-i-Iman, the Book of Certitude, that was revealed after these two works. And then other works like Shakar Shakan Shavan and many works. It's a very rich period during this third Middle Baghdad period. Quickly, and again, I've said that its culmination of this period would be the Kitab-i-Iman. The Kitab-i-Iman is really, for me, is a dividing revelation, where really the things pre-revelation of Kitab-i-Iman and post-revelation of Kitab-i-Iman, and it is truly a monumental work. I mean, you know, it's our second most important work next to our most holy book, the Kitab-i-Aqdas. But there's a reason for that, because it really sums up everything in the revelation as far as the doctrinal stance of the faith, as the Guardian calls it, and it is truly a magical, you know, revelation. And it's mind-boggling. Again, the speed of revelation. I'll talk about that as well. So we're now into the coming up to the fourth period of which is the late Baghdad period, from after I would say mid-January 1861, after the revelation of the Kitab-i-Iman, to just before the Baha'u'llah's transfer to the Garden of Najibiyah. Now, the tone of revelation during this period, it becomes more rich in foreshadowing the unveiling of the beloved. Baha'u'llah's tone is the allusions to his impending declaration. It's a lot more jubilant. It's very festive. So you will see that in the text of it, and there's still some mystical works during that period as well. Some of the most noteworthy tablets revealed during this period, maybe Loa Huriyeh that I put here, Tablet of the Maiden. We still don't know. It may be a Middle Baghdad period, but it could very well have been during the late Baghdad period. But works like the Nightingale of Bereavement, Loh Bulbul al-Faragh, Hura Ujab, the Wondrous Maiden, Loh Ghulam al-Khuld, the Youth of Paradise. These are all mentioned by Mr. Taherzadeh in his volume 1, are clearly the late Baghdad period, where there is stronger allusions to Baha'u'llah's impending declaration, which was seen to have taken effect in the Garden of Najibiyah on April 22nd. Another one, Hal Hala Ya Bisharat, which basically translates to Hallelujah, Hallelujah, oh glad tidings, or glad tidings. So anyhow, so these are some food for thought rather, for you guys, you know, as you do your studies of the revelation of Baha'u'llah. Now, this period, I believe, really culminated with the two tablets of the Holy Mariner. As you know, there are actually two tablets of the Holy Mariner, and this was about a month before Ridvan. We know that it was around Nowruz. Nabil has left in his chronicle an account, which the Guardian has translated in God Passes By, of the tablet of the Holy Mariner. The one that we have in our prayer books is the Arabic version. The Persian one, we don't have an authorized version of it. There is a provisional translation of it. But again, a very mystical and very much pregnant with allusions of Baha'u'llah's future and the state of the cause. It's a wonderful. Both of them are very very mystical yet very rich tablets for study as well. All right, let's now get to the, okay, I guess we need to finish off Najibiyeh. The Najibiyeh period was 12 days. The tone of revelation is still semi-concealed, still reflective, guarded yet jubilant, soul-provoking and inviting. The only tablet that really tells us Baha'u'llah's revelation during that period is the seminal tablet that was revealed during the first day, which is, you know, no small tablet either. It is the Madinatul Sabr, which is referred to as Surah Sabr as well, and sometimes it's referred to as Loha Ayyub. I don't personally like it to be called Loha Ayyub. One of the reasons is Baha'u'llah calls it Hadha Madinatul Sabr. He says, verily, this is the city of patience. So he entitles it. So we need to go by what Baha'u'llah has entitled the tablet, as far as I'm concerned. But the Guardian refers to it as the Surah Sabr. I don't recall anywhere where he will refer to it as Loha Ayyub, because Job, Ayyub, has been referred to in the first few pages of this tablet. Some of the friends, Persian friends, had referred to it as Loha Ayyub. But again, it's a lot more. It's a very, very long and rich tablet, which Baha'u'llah doesn't completely unveil himself or unveil his beauty. So in the Ridvan, during this period, and this is something that I have mentioned in some of my other seminars as well, is that oftentimes we think that during Ridvan, Baha'u'llah's revelation was all very open, very direct. That's not true. In fact, the reason why this is called the city of patience is actually asking God, it's asking the friends to be a little bit more patient, because he still hasn't fully lifted the veil. He has shown a portion of his beauty, so he has not completely disclosed his beauty, and that takes place with his public declaration, which is going to be in 1866 with the revelation of Surah al-Muluk, the Surah of the Kings, and then later on Surah of the Temple, Surah al-Haykal, and then the other letters to the kings. But that's a period that definitely was in the Edirna period, in the latter Edirna period, and that's when Baha'u'llah's true, full scope of his beauty was unveiled. In fact, the veil was rent asunder, as he refers to it, through very difficult events. One being the most great separation, which was the excommunication of the Azalis and the schism that actually formed between the followers of Azal and the followers of Baha'u'llah as well. So anyways, the Madinatul Sabr, again, this is a work that requires a whole Wilmette Institute course to go through and to go over it. It's still one of the works that still does require a lot of research. There is a provisional translation by a great Baha'i scholar, Dr. Khazif Fanonapazir, but does require some tweaking and some annotations with that. But it is available for those friends who want to study it. But there is so many allusions and so many mystical dimensions to this tablet as well that does require a good systematic study of it. And it has not been officially translated by the Baha'i World Center, hopefully sometime soon, but it is not at this point. All right, let's now move on specifically to our Javahir-i-Asrar. So let's look at some of the external features of the tablet, as I like to call it. Perhaps, as I said, the fourth most important tablet revealed in the Baghdad period during the period of concealment after the Kitab-i-Iqan, Hidden Words in the Seven Valleys, revealed in the course of one day. Now, when we talk about one day, this is not like 24 hours. This is, you have to understand, this individual who came and brought the question, and it was a single question. in that the Kitab-i-Iqan had 4 questions, which the uncle of the Bab, Haji Mirza Sayyid Muhammad, asked Baha'u'llah. Sayyid Yusuf al-Sidai Isfahani only asked 1 question of Baha'u'llah, where Baha'u'llah actually, in the prefatory note, states what that question was. Now, during our forum and discussion, there was a bit of a confusion about who was the recipient of the tablet. Now, you have to understand that from time to time, and scholars are not infallible. They go on by the research of other scholars and what's available. So, Mr. Ashraf Khavari, who's probably one of the most erudite Baha'i scholars, Persian Baha'i scholars of the 20th century, which the Guardian called him the philosopher scholar of the East. In one of his works, he refers to the recipient of this tablet to be some other person than Sayyid Yusuf al-Sidai. But Nabil, who was present during those periods, in his unpublished section of his chronicle, refers to it as that this was revealed in honor of Sayyid Yusuf al-Sidai. Also, Fazil Mazandarani, another very erudite scholar of the faith, who has written perhaps one of the most extensive historical volumes, about an 8-volume set from the time of the Bab all the way to the time of Abdul Baha. Very, very important work, which is called Zuhur al-Haq. In his 4th volume, he also refers to the recipient of the tablet being Sayyid Yusuf al-Sidai Isfahani. So the House of Justice obviously have confirmed that it is Sayyid Yusuf al-Sidai. Now, the word Sidai and Isfahan, I just wanted to also, because my ancestry goes back to Isfahan, and Sidai is a small municipality within the greater Isfahan, region, if you will. If you consider Isfahan as a kind of a large city metropolitan, it has a certain section of the city, like where the Armenians lived, was Julfa, and then Sidai was another section of the city. They actually have a different accent. Sidai, it's like the British Cockney, and it's considered to be the kind of the lower part of Isfahan. But there are some great peoples, great believers who have come from Sidai as well. So this fellow, Sayyid Yusuf, was from Sidai, was from Isfahan, and was visiting Karbala, as many Persians were visiting and staying there. There's a chance that he may have heard about the faith of the Bab, like many others, and had heard that Janab Baha, the de facto leader of the Baha'i Babi community, was now exiled in Baghdad, and many people would sometimes go there to find out who this Janab Baha, this great personage, this sheikh was, and perhaps ask some questions from him. Or he may have just been there and then had been taught the faith by others, and may have had some questions, and the most pressing one was obviously was about the Qa'im. I mean, how is the Qa'im Sayyid Ali Muhammad, and many people couldn't really reconcile that in their mind. So here Baha'u'llah unveils this great epistle, this great revelation that answers his question. And he had actually, according to Fazil Mazandarani in his 4th volume, he had stated that if anyone could properly answer his questions, or his question about the Qa'im, he would extend to them his allegiance. So perhaps there may have been some push-pull between Azal and Baha'u'llah, not as much as it was in Adrianople, but there was still machinations, and as you know, there were Azal was known as the as the nominal head of the Babi community, but again, this is a conjecture on my part that this individual wanted some straight answer, and he got that straight answer from Baha'u'llah, and he actually becomes a believer, because Baha'u'llah later on refers to him in the Kitab-i-Iran. He says, you know, it was revealed to one of the loved ones of the faith, or one of the ones who have become a believer. So he certainly, there's good evidence that Sayyid Yusuf became a believer after reading and perusing and studying the Javahir-i-Asrar. How could you not? But anyhow, so he was a Persian Shia Muslim who at the time was residing in Karbala. Hopefully that that clarified. Now, Sayyid Yusuf had sent one of his friends by the name of Askar Sahib. This is Fazil Mazandarani mentions this man as Askar Sahib to deliver this question. And as Baha'u'llah acknowledges, Askar came, submitted his question perhaps at the beginning of the day, and by the end of the day, the revelation was complete and was transcribed and was given to him. So you have to understand, this was not something. So Baha'u'llah revealed the Javahir-i-Asrar, which is, how many pages is it? It's about, you know, about 78 pages here, or about even in a large print would be about 50 pages, a very lengthy tablet relative to some of the other shorter tablets that he has revealed in just a matter of hours. So that in itself is a miracle, you know, to reveal this within few hours, then have it transcribed, and then submit it to. So the version that we have, and this is based on a letter from the Universal House of Justice to another Baha'i scholar by name of Dr. Wahid Behmardi, who has written on Javahir-i-Asrar. He's a professor at University of Beirut. He's Persian, but also is a scholar of Islam and Arabic, and he lives in Beirut. And he wrote an article in the late 90s, which he quotes, or he essentially uses as an evidence this letter from the House of Justice, that, and this is before the publication of the GEMS, because GEMS was, I believe, was published in 2002. So this is a few years earlier, and in that letter, which I will summarize for you in a second, they do state that this tablet was, the original of it, is in the handwriting of one of the believers, and with Baha'u'llah's prefatory note. And in fact, if you look in the opening pages, this photograph, this is a zoomed down version of the first page of the original manuscript, which Baha'u'llah has written on it. And I'll explain to you in a second what else is there in there. But it's transcribed in a beautiful Shikast Nasta'alir, which is one of the styles that the Bab and Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha and even the Guardian used. This is the script of the New Revelation. Rob knows I've spoken about this since my late father was a well-known Baha'i calligrapher. But the Shikast Nasta'alir style is really the style that both the Bab and Baha'u'llah have used. In fact, the Bab in both the Arabic Bayan and the Persian Bayan states that this is the most favored script by God. So Sayyid Yusuf, as we said, let's move on, had sent his friend to get the response, and the friend received the response the same day, as Baha'u'llah says. Now, exact date of composition is not as yet known, but likely sometime in the year 1859 or 1860, before January 1861. So until we find more historical evidence that substantiates an actual firm date, we don't know. And I don't believe that we have any evidence at the World Center, or else the House of Justice would have disclosed it in their letter to Dr. Behmardi in 1997. The most extant original manuscript of this tablet is in the handwriting of Mirza Munir Kashani. Mirza Munir is in the Baha'i history. He's one of the early disciples of Baha'u'llah, who passed away. He was gravely ill and passed away during Baha'u'llah's exile from Edirne to Akka. In the Memorials of the Faithful, Abdul Baha talks about him. Baha'u'llah entitled him Munib, Ismullah al-Munib, but his name was Mirza Munir Kashani, and he came to Baghdad during the Baghdad period and was part of Baha'u'llah's entourage to Istanbul and later Edirne. But one of the services that Mirza Munir provided, he had a great penmanship. He used to transcribe tablets. So this tablet, the Javahir-i-Asrar, is in his handwriting, with, of course, a prefatory note on top of the first page in Baha'u'llah's own hand. Now, to speak a little bit about the style of Javahir-i-Asrar, I think it's worth bringing it to your attention. Javahir-i-Asrar is actually very poetical. It's revealed, even it's Arabic, even though it's in Arabic, which is the language of eloquence. Usually poetry that are very ecstatic and very romantic are in the language of, in Farsi, in Persian, because the language itself lends itself to that. It is a language of light. It's the Lughat Ahla, Baha'u'llah, the sweet language. Lughat Nura, the language of light, Baha'u'llah has referred to it. You know, Arabic is a language of eloquence, but God loves poetry and rhythm and beauty. You know, of course, this is a revelation of beauty, as you know. You know, we have the blessed beauty, and this is a revelation of beauty. So even the writings are laden with this special beauty, you know, and the Baghdad period tablets are infused with a great deal of beauty, because later on Baha'u'llah's tablets turn more proclamatory, and then his laws. So the Baghdad period tablets are the ones that are the most gorgeous, the most beautiful sounding, the most you know, vivifying. It's the most soul-provoking, soul-stirring than, you know, any of the ones. I mean, you read them and you just fall into ecstasy. And this is another work, and I wish we could actually study it in the original. My Arabic is not that great, but despite the gracious favor of many friends, including Rob, but enough to tell you a few things about the Arabic and the style of Javahir-i-Asrar. For example, I'll read for you the first few lines. The tablet starts with Javahir-i-Asrar fi Ma'arij al-Asfar. As you can see, the rhythm, Javahir-i-Asrar fi Ma'arij al-Asfar. لمن أراد يتقرب إلى الله المقتدر القفار. So you see, Asfar, Qaffar, Asrar, these are all rhythmic words. These are chosen. And Baha'u'llah does choose them. Even in some of his most proclamatory letters to the tablet to the Tsar of Russia, أن يا ملك الروس أن استمع نداء الله الملك القدوس. So you see Rus and Qudus come together. It's incredible. If you would read it, it just sends a shiver down your spine. I mean, it is so gorgeous. It's so incredible. So then he continues. He says, so I'll read it. Javahir-i-Asrar fi Ma'arij al-Asfar لمن أراد يتقرب إلى الله المقتدر القفار فحنيا للأبرار الذين يشربون من هذا الأنهار. So this is the exordium, or the first few sentences, the three sentences. And then he begins with هو العلي الأعلى. Now, this هو العلي الأعلى is a very significant invocation that oftentimes gets glossed over. And you know, it literally means what the House of Justice have translated as the invocation. He is the exalted, the most high. However, is Huwa al-Aliyul A'la. It has other significances as well. Who was Ali? Ali was Ali Muhammad, the Bab. Okay? In amongst the followers, the Persian followers of the Bab and the early followers, he was known as Hazrat Rabb A'la, okay, which means His Holiness, the Lord, the Most Exalted, okay, Rabb A'la. So the word a'la, and you know, if you remember, huwa al-aliyul a'la. I mean, this is very, and this is also in the writings of the Bab as well. So here, Baha'u'llah, in continuation, okay, in the early, again, this is works like Shakar Shakan Shavad also starts with huwa al-aliyul a'la. There are many works. Even the Madinatul Sabr, the tablet that was revealed in Ridvan, the city of patience, begins with huwa al-aliyul a'la. And Javahir-i-Asrar, the invocation, is huwa al-aliyul a'la. So this imagery of Ali, I mean, we don't have time here, but the word Ali, it's also what is common to both the Bab and Baha'u'llah, because both of their names had Ali in it. Okay, so the Bab was Ali Muhammad, and Baha'u'llah was Hussein Ali. Okay, now Hussein Ali came first, and it was the Hussein, and then what brings them together, what is the common denominator, if you will, in their names, is Ali. And Ali was also the common denominator. He was the progeny. He was the first Imam as well, that connected Muhammad and his lineage as well. So there's a great deal of imagery and interplay here. Okay, and so I just wanted to bring that to your attention as well. And Baha'u'llah was 2 years older, so Hussein Ali, then Ali Muhammad, and yet Ali Muhammad came first, and then passed the torch to Hussein Ali. And you know, Baha'u'llah in one of his tablets has said that the reality of the Bab and himself are identical. This is why oftentimes with scholars trying to look at the Bab in a different context, and some of the references that the Bab and Baha'u'llah make, oftentimes Baha'u'llah, even though he was from a Persian lineage, he refers to himself as this Arabian youth. But the Arabian youth was a title of the Bab, or was the Bab because of his lineage. But yet Baha'u'llah uses that because their reality were essentially the same. And this is the transition. This is the transitional period. You see that in his very first ode, Rash Amal, which I have written and I've spoken about as well, is the one that was revealed in the Siyah Chal, or you know, the imagery of it is incredible. And it's a transition between the revelation of the Bab, the person of the Bab, and the person of Baha'u'llah Mirza Hussein Ali, and the promised Hussein as well. So a lot of information here. Now, so it begins, huwa al-aliyul a'la ya ayyuha as-saliku fi subul al-adl. This is Baha'u'llah. The first sentence of the Javahir-i-Asrar is ya ayyuha as-saliku fi subul al-adl wal nadhiru ila tal'at al-faz. Okay, so adl and faz, again, the rhythm. قد بلغ كتابك وعرفت سوائك وسمعت لحنات قلبك في سرادق فؤادك. It's just, I mean, let's look at the translation, but this is what Baha'u'llah is. It says, O thou who treadest the path of justice and beholdest the countenance of mercy, thine epistle was received, thy question was noted, so this is a singular question, and the sweet accent of thy soul were heard from the inmost chambers of thy heart. You see how beautiful. I mean, can you imagine you being the recipient of this tablet, and however hardened Muslim you are, especially a Shia Muslim, very pedantic, very, you know, crusty, if you will, this melts your way. I mean, the way Baha'u'llah is using the mystical dimension, the Sufi dimension, to resonate with the heart of the people who are thirsty, who are yearning. Anyways, let's move on, as since we are. Let's look at the time. Yes, we are coming to our deadline here. So I'll have about another 10 minutes to go through, and we'll have some questions. So I want to talk a little bit about the tablet. I believe this is all I wanted to say. Well, let's see. Yeah, let's examine some of the contents of this awe-inspiring tablet together. So, just again, I wanted to say Baha'u'llah uses the genre of Islamic mysticism to draw the seeker to his message, also to disengage the Shia intellectuals from the status quo quagmire of Shia jurisprudence or fiqh. Baha'u'llah offered his message within the framework of Islamic mysticism, Sufism. Through the abstract world of Sufism, he touched the minds and the hearts of those who were seeking true enlightenment. Now, in his article, his great article by Dr. Wahid Behmardi, he maintains, now again, these are just some thoughts that I wanted to share with you that Dr. Behmardi has brought to our attention, maintains that all the revelations in the early to mid-Baghdad period were preparing the path or setting the stage for the revelation of the Iran, which I had alluded to. He says that gems is a link between the seven valleys and the Iran, and that one would not be able to fully comprehend, this is his words, the underlying thought of the seven valley without the gems. And similarly, without the Iran, one could not fully comprehend the essence of the seven valleys and the gems. Even though the Iran was revealed prior, we need to read them within that context, Dr. Behmardi advises. So, we've talked about, now a couple of note, Baha'u'llah, with this manuscript, just one last word about this manuscript. As you know, in the prefatory note, which is right at the very top here, okay, this is the text, if you could see it, the text of the tablet is the one that is very, again, in a rectangle, very orderly. The text that's written actually upside down, or right side up, depending how you look at it, is Baha'u'llah's own words, and this is the one that the House of Justice quote in their introduction, where Baha'u'llah says this treatise was written in reply to a seeker who had asked how the promised Mahdi could have become transformed into Ali Muhammad. The opportunity provided by this question was seized to elaborate on a number of subjects, all of which are of use and benefit both to them that seek and to those who have attained. Could ye perceive with the eye of divine virtue? So both for the believer or those seekers. He says this is very useful, which we all know that. Now, at the end of the manuscript that you don't see, apparently the House of Justice have stated that Baha'u'llah in his own hand has also signed Al-Manzul min al-Ha qabla sin, which is again another cryptic form for stating the word Hussein. So Ha and Sin, when you join them together, becomes Hussein. The other thing I just wanted to let you know, the reason why many of these tablets were without a colophon, which is kind of a stamp or the signature of the transcriber, or the name of the recipient, is that you have to understand that both the writings of the Bab and Baha'u'llah were outlawed at the time. It was actually illegal for you to have them in your possession. In fact, many early believers went to jail and prison for many years for having on their person copies, heretical copies of the writings of the Bab and Baha'u'llah. So both the Bab and Baha'u'llah used cryptic language to using Arabic numerology and various things, so the recipient's identity would remain concealed for their protection, because this was the grace, God's grace, to do that. So that's the reason. I mean, now 150 years from now, we say, oh, why are these tablets don't have a name? Well, there's a reason for it, and that was one of the reasons. Okay. Now, quickly moving on to the last section, there's a few things in here that I want to bring to your attention, but we can maybe discuss it on the forum. But there are two things. I'll start with the one that is rather short. The reference that Baha'u'llah makes, the corruption of biblical passages. I did study Christianity, amongst other things, as well in university. at both a Protestant college as well as a Catholic college under a canon lawyer. But I was always very interested in the scripture. And one of the things that even in the last 50 years, and perhaps Rob, Dr. Stockman can elaborate on that later on, is that a lot of scholars, Christian scholars, have looked at the manuscript more critically, and there were sections of the Gospels even that were later additions. For example, Gospel of Mark, which is considered to be the first gospel written, and all the other synoptic gospels written from that, some scholars believe. In the very last section of the gospel, which is, here I have it here, Mark 16. There's a note here, this is the International Bible, New International Version, which is one of the scholarly versions of it, that states that the verses 9 through 19 of Mark 16. So from 16 to 8, the scholars maintain that this was originally written, but they believe that the verses 9 to 16, which actually is a very significant verses to do with the corporal resurrection of Jesus Christ, where there's actually Jesus appears. This is believed, and there's actually a footnote, the most reliable early manuscripts and other ancient witnesses do not have Mark 16:9 to 20. This is Christian scholars are saying that. So this would be one addition or corruption of the text, if you will. And I believe that when Baha'u'llah is referring, or what the Islam referred to, is about these additions to the text. From the writings of both Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha, I have gathered that the words of Jesus Christ, what he uttered, they are as they were, because these were revelations. The rest, which are somewhat the fluff, if you will, that are stories, Abdul Baha says they're just stories, and both in the New Testament and the Old Testament as well. But as far as corruption of the text, Baha'u'llah says that the Word of God was never corrupted. So there were things that were added. For example, the resurrection passages here. So I believe Mark 16, 9 to 20 is a good example of that. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. That's my 2 cents worth on that. The next subject, which I believe is very important, and we can, whatever question it arises from this can be moved into the forum and discussion, is the reference to Jabul Gha and Jabul Sa. These are the two mythical, legendary cities where presumably the Qa'im resides. These cities were during the greater occultation, because there was a lesser occultation and then the greater occultation, and this is a subject of, again, another elaboration. But I just want to get into a few aspects of this. So, and these cities, again, these are published in Shia tradition, but not Shia holy traditions of the Imam. Okay, and Baha'u'llah makes reference to that these two cities are just astronomically large. They can't be physical. They have 1,000 gates, and at each gate there is 1,000 soldiers or sentinels posted guarding it, and that if a person wanted to travel from one end of one city to the other, even on a very fast horse, riding non-stop, will take them months to travel. So obviously, it's very mythical. In fact, Dr. Behmardi makes mention of that in 1992. There was an article in Iran. I haven't seen it, but he mentions it in a footnote of his article, that one of the Persian clergies who had written about that had stated that the city where the Qa'im is actually where the Bermuda Triangle is, which is very ludicrous. But again, you could see that all this nonsense that has been proliferated throughout the ages. And the special point that I want to raise here, which is very special, that perhaps is not known as we read it, is that Baha'u'llah is answering this man who is a staunch Shia who believes in this, and then confirms or validates in this tablet the existence of these two cities. Okay? However, in later tablets, Baha'u'llah invalidates this. And in fact, there are more tablets where he invalidates Jabul Gha and Jabul Sa because of a lie that was that proliferated and changed. And Abdul has made comments of it. And what is this lie? Baha'u'llah in one of his tablets states that that this whole concept of the Qa'im and where he lived came as a result of the word of one of the female members of the family of Imam Hassan al-Askari. You know, the 11th Imam was known as Hassan al-Askari. The word Askar means, in Arabic, means soldier. The reason he was no soldier, but because he was under arrest for greater part of his life in an army barracks, he was known as al-Askari. Okay, that's it. So his name was Hassan. Now, when he passes on, he had no children. However, his aunt, the sister of the 10th Imam, Jawad, starts to spread this rumor that there was a son, his name was Muhammad, and he went into hiding. Okay, and hence became popularized. Now, the brother of the Imam, the brother of the 11th Imam, the younger brother, his name was Ja'far. Ja'far comes out and tells everyone that, you know, my brother did not have an offspring. And the forces who were opposing or supporting his aunt and those who wanted this continuation and started creating this myth, and in fact branded him, stigmatized him as Kazzab, the liar. And in Shia history, unfortunately, he was the most truthful, but he is known as Ja'far Kazzab, in contrast to the 6th Imam, Ja'far al-Sadiq, who was quoted by Baha'u'llah, his traditions, the truthful, Ja'far the truthful. So they wanted to separate him, so he's known as Ja'far Kazzab, and the liar. And Abdul makes mention of him in one of his writings, I believe, that he was truly truthful. So Baha'u'llah says that. He says that this myth was created in the Shia and there's a section in the tablet. He says Ravi wujud qa'im yaki az anas bude. You know, it means one of the ladies. And this lady's name, for those of you who are interested, was Hakime Khatun, and was the brother, the aunt of the 11th Imam, the sister of the 10th Imam. Anyways, I think that's all for now. A lot of information I've shared with you, a lot of historical information. Perhaps if now there is some questions. Dr. Stockman, is that, I think we're right on, we're 12:05 here, so we're about 65 minutes into our presentation.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Okay.
Shahrokh, I must say I'm a bit overwhelmed by all of this information that you have provided. I've never seen anybody periodize the Baghdad period and characterize the tablets of the period, and it's just it's fascinating stuff. And then, of course, the mention of the Bible. My Bible does indeed have what you just mentioned about Mark having. It has a so-called shorter ending of Mark and a longer ending of Mark, and it even says that the shorter ending is probably 2nd century and the longer ending is 4th century, as a scholarly guess, of course. So yes, indeed, as you mentioned, there's this whole question of what is the end of Mark, And I can't help also but mention that it sounds like the people who were inventing the 12th Imam were anticipating the existence of Coruscant, the capital planet of Star Wars, where the city, of course, took the entire planet, which would indeed sound like Jabal Jabal Sah.
Yeah, it does. It does. Very good analogy. Very good analogy.
But I don't know. So far, I don't know. We've got some people saying all good, and let's see if I can get some of these questions to pop up so I can see them better. Because right now I've got people recording. There is a little place where people can put questions, and if people want to type questions in there, then I'll be able to mention them. Let's see. This is the thing I need to do here. So far, we don't have any questions, but there were two that occurred to me. One is that every now and then there were a few terms you used that people might not be aware of. You mentioned the term Qaim, for example, that the Bab was considered the Qaim. So you might want to explain that term real quick in case people don't know. You know, Q-A-I-M, they don't always hear and see the word.
Yeah, well, Qaim literally means the one who shall arise. And it is in the Shia Islam, the promised one who's to come is the Qa'im from the house of Muhammad. He's known as Qa'im al-Hasab, Qa'im ala Muhammad, or as Persians would call it, Qa'im ala Muhammad. So, you know, the Bab, in the very first paragraph of Qayyum al-Asma, he actually has this amazing genealogy cantation, if you will, that he goes into it, and he basically says that, you know, he was who he was, and despite the fact that in the early days people considered him as a gate to the hidden Imam or so on. You know, I wanted to bring this out. First of all, let me finish the Qa'im. So the Qa'im literally means the promised one that will come. The Mahdi, the Sunnis believe Mahdi was the promised one of Islam, and the Qa'im is the one who shall arise from the house of Muhammad, which is to the Athna Ashariyas, to the 12 or Shiism, which are the larger population, and they're the ones who create all the problems, you know, and they're based in Iran right now. They believe that the 12th Imam is the Qa'im. And now let's just, you know, let's stop here and reflect. It is so amazing that God actually indulges us, humanity. When we spread lies and rumors, he even creates prophecies based on the lies, fulfillment of it, based on the lies. And even those came true. So you see, that whole lie that Baha'u'llah says, which was initiated by the aunt of the 12th or the 11th Imam, had this ramification which continued, and God fulfilled his promise based on even that lie. So for me, it's amazing that God is so gracious that even he indulges us with even some of the fallacy that has been, you know, has proliferated through a religion, you know. So that's the part that I find very amusing.
I've always been amazed that studying the history of religion, that to some extent one of the themes of religion and human history is that God makes lemonade out of lemons. We give God a lot of lemons.
Yes.
So he makes a lot of lemonade.
Oh, he does a lot of that, yes.
We have a question here. What is the exact one question that Yusuf posed to Baha'u'llah? Do we have the exact wording? Or? Well,
according to Baha'u'llah, is the one, yes, we do, because remember, I just read it. The question is where Baha'u'llah, and this is in the page 2, or page 2 of the introduction, where Baha'u'llah says this in the prefatory note. He says this treatise was written in reply to a seeker who had asked. So that's how the promised Mahdi could have become transformed into Ali Muhammad. So that was his question. That how is this Ali Muhammad Shirazi is the Mahdi? Okay, how is it possible? Because we're expecting him to come from Jabal Gha and Jabal Sa, and we're expecting him to be this and that and the other. And how is it this youth from Shiraz, from all places, is the Mahdi? So that's the question.
Jim Mulbeck asked this question about Baha'u'llah having a prior residence in, he says Qazamin, maybe that refers to Qazamin, and were there any writings revealed from that particular residence?
You know, Qazamin are the two, you know, at the time it used to be about 3 miles outside of Baghdad. Right now it's part of the greater Baghdad, and it's the two imams who have the name Qazim, and that's why the word Qazimain means the two Qazims are buried there. They're shrines of the Shia Qazims. So originally Baha'u'llah had gone to Qazimain to stay there because the majority of the Persians thronged that city, but the Persian Council General requested that Baha'u'llah take up residence in the old quarter of Baghdad, so as to not create any, you know, controversies, you know, with those people. So and Baha'u'llah did. He acceded, and he lived in the old quarter of Baghdad. But as far as whether tablets revealed in Qazamin, there may have been, and Baha'u'llah would probably have traveled to that location many times. In fact, during the very first trip that Baha'u'llah took, and this is right after the martyrdom of the Bab, between June of 1851 to about July of 1852, just before the attempt on the life of the Shah and Baha'u'llah's incarceration in Siyah Chal, Baha'u'llah was in Karbala for 1 year. So when he was in Karbala, he would visit, you know, Qazamin and those locations as well. So I don't know. I haven't come across any tablet. Not to say that it doesn't exist. In fact, more than likely does exist, because there's so many tablets revealed during that period that still need to be cataloged and needs to be, you know, put into the right order and so on. So I don't know.
And another question someone also asked was whether you can give us any kind of sort of breakdown of the contents of the tablet itself. Are there sections to it that are noticeable, shifts of subject in it? So is there any way you can sort of divide up or summarize the content of the tablet?
Of Javahir-i-Asrar?
Yes.
Well, Javahir-i-Asrar, I think the best translation, it truly is a great translation by the House of Justice, is the one that you have. Mm-hmm. So, and it was many years in the making. It was not something that they, you know, was whipped out, you know, in just a matter of a few weeks. And
Baha'u'llah can reveal it in a few hours, but they can't translate it that fast.
I'll tell you, as a very feeble translator, I could tell you, I agonize over sentences and words for days. You know, it just, translation is not an easy task. So this is a great translation. There's nothing more I can add to it. It's, I mean, I don't have access to the original manuscript. I mean, in future, scholars will look at the manuscripts and they will do a critical edition, if you will, like some of the academic scholars have done with other holy texts of other religions. But we just, at this point, we just want to get the content, you know, and just getting the translation, or a good translation of it in itself is so important. But you know, we now have it, so this is great.
Another question I wanted to ask you is, perhaps you could say a little something about the two words in the title. Javahir, of course, is plural of Johar, as I understand it.
Yes.
And Asrar is the plural of Ser.
That's right.
Baha'u'llah called Abdul Baha the mystery of God, Serullah. So there you've got the word Ser. And as I understand it, Johar can mean essence, or it can mean, well, essence I think is its main meaning in Arabic, right? But plural Javahir means more like gems, and that was another issue they had, just to decide whether to translate it as gems or essences.
That's right. I think in his video, Stephen Phelps does make mention of that you know, I think Gems of Divine Mysteries is a great translation. You know, but it's also essence of mysteries as well. So you see, it's interesting. On the title, the house have entitled it Gems of Divine Mystery, but in the opening lines of it, which is this page here, this page, where it says the essence of divine mysteries in the journey of ascent set forth for those who long to draw nigh unto God. So they have used both.
They use essences there. That's interesting.
So the essence of divine mysteries. So this is, yeah. You know, the word, it is a tough word to translate. It is in its truest form. It is essence. Okay, mm-hmm. But it also refers to, you know, I mean, in common vernacular Persian, you know, they say Javahirat Saltanati, the crown jewels of Iran. You know, so it's Javahir. And also, I got to tell you one other thing. Again, being from a family of calligrapher, you know, the word Johar, which means, you know, the gem or essence, is also the term used for the ink, the black ink that, you know, they wrote with, the calligraphers wrote, and it's still called Johar.
Yeah,
so
and as I understand it, Johar is an Arabization of an earlier Middle Persian word Gohar, which meant ink.
Oh, really? Gohar? Yeah, that could be, because Gohar also means jewel as well. Yeah. That's a purely a Persian word. Right. So Gohar. So it may have been Johar, Gohar. They're very, very, very common. You know. But the other thing also is, in fact, that is true. You know, because the Arabs don't have ga. Yeah. Okay. They like Gamal Abdel Nasser is Jamal Abdel Nasser is, you know, as the Arabs or the
Egyptian, it's Gohar.
It's particularly, yes. There's no ga. It's a ja. Right. Yeah. So Metro Golden Mayer was Metro Julden Mayer. You know, I mean, it's like yes.
Well, there's a poem by Saadi Ben Niadam Azalya Yek
Gohar
Harand Kedar Afarinesh Zayek Goharand instead of Joharand. Yeah. And my Persian teacher pointed out that people often say Joharand, but it was originally Goharand. But
Goharand, anyway. Yes, that's very good, very good.
We have a comment by Salman Sahba. Thank you very much. They don't have a question in particular. I'm looking to see what other questions we have. There's some suggestions about making sure we add a little more about the content of the tablet and the slides, and perhaps possibly adding English translations whenever we do any Persian titles, so that people can understand them a little more easily. Oh, the other question I wanted to ask you about was this confusion about the recipient. In both cases, the person was an Esfahani, I believe. Yes. And I assume that that's part of the reason for the confusion, was that since people didn't have they had first names, they didn't have last names, and everybody was known by some sort of honorific based on their place or their profession or something. So I assume that that's where the confusion in Taherzadeh comes from, and he has the wrong name for the recipient.
Yeah, and I want to just add a note to this again. You know, for example, when you go into God Passes By, the date of the revelation of the Kitab-e-Iran is 1862. For the longest time, people thought it was 1862. So, but our late dear scholar friend, Dr. Ahang Rabbani, wrote a wonderful article which was published in the World Order, and I believe it was you, Robert, who pointed out to me at a conference many years back that this had come out, because you were part of the World Order editorial board at some point.
Betty, who's watching right now, is the one who edited it.
Okay, well, excellent job, and you know, I tell you, that is such an incredible service to the scholarly community, to the Baha'i studies, you know, and God rest his soul, you know, Ahang John. You know, he was such a sweet man and a wonderful scholar. We are missing him already, and we're going to appreciate his work in years to come. So this, again, through the correspondence of the uncle of the Bab, we got the date now within the first half of January of 1861. So again, this changes. You know, another one, the friends should not be alarmed by this. For example, you know, in the tablets of Baha'u'llah, the tablet Asl Kull Khair, okay, the words of wisdom. You know, for me, it always kind of stood out as a very unique and interesting tablet. It never fit the mold of all the tablets revealed after the Kitab-i Aqdas. And our dear friend Nejati Alkan, Dr. Nejati Alkan, who's a scholar from Turkey, found in the Ottoman archives evidence that points out that this is actually a tablet that was revealed during the Adrianople period. So again, you know, these things happen, and in time there will be corrections. As I've said before, you know, one should not look at this and say, was the Guardian right or wrong? I mean, Guardian was going by the works of other scholars at the time. His infallibility was in his interpretation, in his elucidation of the sacred text, and there's no fault in that. So just putting a certain date, you know, that he wasn't there himself based on certain authoritative Baha'i scholarly works, you know, I mean, it changes. So this is, and we're going to see that actually in Shakar Shakan Shaband. For the longest time, people believed that the recipient was one person, and then again, Nabil mentions that he was someone else. So again, it's Mr. Balyuzi makes mention of that. In fact, Mr. Taherzadeh in the first edition of his revelation of Baha'u'llah had the one that other scholars believed, and then in the second edition he corrected. So you know, it does happen, you know, and
well, even the dates of some of these tablets, I mean, the tablets you're dating in the various Baghdad periods, I thought some of them were actually post Ridvan Garden. I hadn't realized. I thought that maybe the tablet of the Holy Mariner or something was actually revealed during his trip to Adrianople.
No. That we know. Well, the Holy Mariner we know for sure. There are, because it was the Nowruz before Ridvan, which was 31 days before that. We know that, and the Guardian confirms that. Some of the other tablet, we're going by you know, the Guardian based most of his information on Nabil's account, you know, of his chronicle, because Nabil was also present in most of them, and he also had photographic memory. But you know, that doesn't mean that Nabil, you know, didn't make mistakes. And you know that with all the annotations that the Guardian added to the Dawnbreakers, you know, that enhanced what Nabil had stated, and there are certain things that sometimes were somewhat contradictory with regards to some other scholars and some Orientalists had said. So you know what? This will come. Many of these will come to light. We're still too close to the early stages of the faith, and there still needs to be a lot of research done. So, you know, some of these you know, tablets may turn out to be you know, later or earlier. We don't know until we study them. But usually you can get a sense from the tone. If you read the tablet, and in the list that I mentioned that I put together, I had to sometimes go and take a look at the list and read the tablet itself, if I could get my hands on, and decide whether this was really which period it was. You know, the Baghdad period style is very unique. The whole Baghdad period, and then Adrianople is very unique. Akka is unique. You know, so those are easy to, if you know the style of Baha'u'llah's writings, you can organize them in that way. Now, going into which date, which sub period, that's the more challenging you know, period or task. So to be continued.
Good. Yeah, another question here is back to the structure of Gems of Divine Mysteries. The introduction lists many themes to the tablet. Can you comment on the structure of the tablet? Is it divided into discernible sections?
I don't have the original manuscript. I've only seen, like you, the first page, and it doesn't look that way. And like, for example, the Kitab-i-Iran, oftentimes people have said was in 2 sections. You know why? Because there were 2 days. So Baha'u'llah had to take a rest, you know. I mean, that's probably more than likely what it was, and give a chance for those who are transcribing it
to keep up.
Yeah, to keep up with it, you know. So this you know, I don't believe the style. Usually, on most of those tablets were always written in one kind of, you know, pattern. They were not. They were just trying to fit it in either in one page or two page or multiple pages. For example, the Tablet of Ahmad that we all know in Baha'u'llah's own hand. It is in sections, but the sections, just because Baha'u'llah wanted to fit it in one page, he wrote in different, in the borders and in sides, and sometimes, and that was very common at the time, that they would take a page and write, on the side or in the, and create a kind of a nice pattern to it as well. So, but I don't see anything. I haven't seen the original text, all of it, to tell you that.
Interesting. That's all of the questions that we have, and I don't know if anyone has anything else to ask. We've been going about an hour and a half, and I think perhaps this is a good point to end our broadcast. This really has been fantastic, Shahrokh. I'm so grateful that you had the time to do this, and I'm looking forward to one on Shekhar Shaband in 2 weeks. I think we can do it at 1 o'clock Eastern, which would be 10 o'clock Pacific on the 2nd of August, and that appears to be possible for me. I'm pretty sure that will work out for everybody, so I'll send out a notice about that, and I'll also send it out much more broadly this time, so that more people than just the people in the class can join in if they'd like to. It'll help fill in the gap, since our next web talk's not until the end of August or early September, so it'll be a kind of bridge, you might say.
Okay.
But thank you so much, and I want to also invite people to, we're going to do a Wilmette Institute reflection meeting exactly a week from now on Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and that will be a chance to see what the Institute's been up to and what its goals are for the next few years and how you can assist with the goals. So with that, without further ado, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And again, thank you, Shahrokh. And everybody have a good weekend.
Right. Take care.